of country. I got a lot of country. It's a lot of country. Well, we'll take them and see what happens. Anything else in here? Nope. Okay. So it happened again. I went to the town dump. It's actually a transfer station, and they have a little. Well, it's essentially like a sea crate that they leave open, and it's their reuse bin. And so when people get stuff that they're like, this shouldn't really go to the dump, it's just, I just don't need it, they can drop it off inside there, and then you can go look through it, and if you want it, you just take it. It's free. It's the county sees it as a good thing because it's less stuff going to the landfill. Yeah, so about a year ago, I was taking a whole bunch of stuff that I'd had from taking down a small deck, and I was going there to take to the dump. And as I drove by that bin, which I didn't even know existed until that point, I, out the corner of my eye, swear that I saw like a stack of records. So I dumped off the wood, went back, and sure enough, there were like 4 bins of records there, and I ended up getting some interesting stuff. There were a few fairly valuable records. Now, I'm not talking like, like crazy money, but like $50, $60 records, and a few. I will post that video somewhere, wherever that posting stuff goes, here, if you want to go back and look at that. But ever since then, every couple of weeks I drive by the dump, and the staff have kind of got to know me at this point, and they just kind of wave me through. And I go look, and I hadn't found any more records. I had found CDs, which is cool. I had found 2 video game collections, PS2, Xbox 360, a few Nintendo things in there as well, which was great. And lots of other things that I picked up out of there. I got a pinball machine playfield from the 60s, and a giant M&M's display peanut thing, all kinds of stuff. But I'm always hoping for records, and I think the staff knows that, because this time when I drove up, the girl's like, there's records. I'm like, yay, and off we went. And so I jot down there. Unfortunately, there were records, and I'm not going to keep you in suspense. It was mostly country and western, and 70s stuff that doesn't interest me in any way, shape, or form. But there were a few gems in there, like, again, like $40, $50 records. And it wasn't entirely all country, but it was along that line. So I'm just warning you now, if you're like not into country, maybe this video isn't for you. Tune out. Go back and look at the other one that I've got if you want, or maybe if you're into punk rock, I just did 2 really good punk rock scores in the last like month, so they're interesting to check out. But I won't hold you, in suspense longer. I'm just going to show you what we got over there, and we'll go do that now. Okay, so here is the first tub. Now, again, as I probably mentioned earlier, these are all free. Yeah, came from the dump. A lot of them, as I said, it's a lot of country, and it's like a lot of mid-70s country, which is not my particular favorite, but they were free. And out of here, there's some pretty interesting stuff, and a few, pretty good records. Now, if you're not a country fan, this probably won't interest you. Honest to God. I'm going to get a lot of probably should have just left them at the dump and stuff like that. But no, because these will go out into people's collections. I am going to put the majority of them probably in my dollar bin, and then people will pick them up who think, just because you don't like 1970s country, most of it doesn't interest me. But there are people out there that's what they collect. Just like probably whatever you collect. Like, there are parts of my record collection and people are like, why the hell do you have that? And because it's something I enjoy. just because you don't like something doesn't mean that everybody doesn't like it. We'd all get along so much better if that was the case. So we'll go through it real quick. I've got 3 bins to go through. And again, keep in mind, free. And I went through, and most of them are in pretty good shape. They need a cleaning. They are not scratched up or beat up. They were kept in their sleeves and their paper inners. So yeah, they'll all play pretty well. So yeah, we'll just go through them real quick here, and I'll pull out any ones that I think are sort of highlights. There's one. Hank Williams, always selling Hank. There's another Hank. There's another Hank. Compilations I sell too. Yeah, there's some other things in here like that. This is actually pretty all right. If you're into Santo and Johnny and sort of like really good guitar with some slide, this one, I believe they're Canadian. Andy and Ollie Strong and Kenny Hepburn. There's a pretty cool one. I've actually had this and sold this. So it's Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, Roy Orbison, Johnny Cash, which is kind of good. Some of these I've never even heard of. Look, there's Hank and Hank Williams Jr., Jerry Lee Lewis. That's kind of interesting. Prison records are always fun. John Anderson there. There's a lot of sort of that trucks. Now this is actually pretty good. It's the Roadhouse soundtrack, the original one. And for those of you who've seen the movie, the house band was Jeff Healey. And there's some there's Patrick Swayze songs on here. Like, this isn't something that really interests me that much, but I have soundtrack collectors, and just check the Discogs comps on these. It's well over $40. So that's kind of cool. Here is another, and this one I actually really do love. If you're into like sort of rockabilly, good early rock and roll, the Fenderman and Mule Skinner Blues is awesome. So this is one, it's on the, I think it's the Canadian, is it? Yeah, this is the compo one, but it's still on the Point label, in really good shape, and except for a little bit of tape along the bottom. But I have had this and sold it. The comps range, again, sort of starting at $50. So there you go. Another soundtrack. John Travolta on there. Lots of Buck Owens in here. Jenny C. Riley. There you go. Cute girl on a motorcycle. What are you going to do about that? I was really hoping for a lot more Dolly because I love Dolly. And there were a few in here, but this is the stuff she did with Porter, which is not some of my favorite stuff, but it is some of the earliest Dolly you're going to get. Look at her there. Gosh darn it, that's a good-looking lady. Some Fair and Young. Some later stuff, too. Here's Johnny and the Hurricanes. That one had some things. Kooky Country, spelt with K's. Carl Smith. Hank Thompson. Lots of Buck Owens and the Buckaroos, which I actually have people who've asked me for that. So again, I used to be, when I first opened the store 20 years ago, I used to bring in only stuff that I wanted. And probably over the last, I don't know, 5, well, probably longer, maybe 10 years, I realized, you know what? There's people who collect all kinds of stuff. And just because I don't like it doesn't mean somebody won't it. Because I would get asked for stuff and I'd be like, I'd never, you know, have that in here. There's Webb Pierce. And so there's the rest of the Porter. And the thing is that, you know, one of my favorite movies is High Fidelity. I mean, for obvious reasons. But, you know, I set up a store in like a faraway place to avoid the whole tourist thing, just like in High Fidelity. But the thing about High Fidelity that always bugged me, and always bugged me in general, were the snotty record store employees. And I just sort of, I probably started out like that. And as I've gotten older, I'm over 50 now, I realize that is just stupid. So yeah, I try to bring in stuff that, you know what, it's like, it ain't something I would necessarily listen to, but you know what? My taste is probably hated by a lot of different kinds of people. And I think that's just wrong. You should try to keep yourself open to as much kind of different music as possible, because you never know. You really don't. The best music you've ever heard that will strike you in a way could be just around the corner. And speaking of just around the corner is the other box, so I will go get that now. And here is the second box. Again, I got all these from the dump. I have had some other finds from the dump before, obviously. In fact, the very first thing I ever got from our dump transfer station, as they call it, they have a recycling bin there. And it's people put stuff in that they think is sort of better than too good to go into the actual garbage. And then people can just come in and take it for free. And first time I ever noticed it, it had records in it. And I made a video about that. I'll put a link in here somewhere for you to be able to see that, because there were actually some really good records in that one. But this stuff, you know, not the kind of stuff I like, as I've said. But for free, I'll take it. So, see, there's another okay soundtrack. I have people who collect soundtracks. They'll just want that. So people in here like, I've never heard of Roddy Crowell. There's Hank William Jr. I get asked for Hank stuff all the time. There's Junior and Senior. Bill Anderson. There's another Hank Jr. Trucking comps. In the 70s, there was like a big trucking thing. Town and Country Guitar. I actually might check that out. Plain Strat. Shakin' Stevens. Weird that it's in there. Glenn Campbell. Hank Jr. More Hank Jr. More Hank Jr. So that's all right. And here comes that run, I think, of like lots of Buck Owens and the Buckaroos. They were a Buckaroos fan. More Shakin' Stevens, weird. The Wagoneers in there. Some Sonny James. Roy Clark, one of the best guitar players you'll ever come across. More Shakin' Stevens. Somebody likes Shakin' Stevens as well as all the rest. That's a quality cover. Gene Shepard. Oh, look, Nancy Sinatra. I saw a lot of Nancy lately. Yeah. Warren Mack, never heard of. Stampley's. Stonewall Jackson. I was really hoping there might be some Louvin Brothers in here, because personally I love the Louvin Brothers. If you haven't checked them out, the harmonies are just incredible. Also a very valuable Louvins record to keep your eye out for. Billy Crash Craddock on there is, oh, I can't remember the name of it, but it's got like a gigantic, oh, The Devil Is Real. That's what it's called. And the cover alone is worth the entry fee. Chris Spedding. I didn't see that when I went through it originally. That's kind of interesting to be in there too. So yeah, that's another tub. I'll do a piece count at the end, and sort of an estimate of what all the stuff in there, that how many out of here I'll probably keep. But yeah, I'll go get the other tub now. And this is the last tub. These are all in like county recycling bins too, which they just let me take because that's what they came in. These ones have been leaning for a while, you can see, but I did check the records. It doesn't look like any of the actual records themselves are sort of warped. Sometimes the covers get that way. Whew, I'm out of breath from carrying these things. Bellamy Brothers, who I'm not familiar with, that is awesome. Everything about that is amazing. Yeah, I don't even know who's on it. Let's see. Yeah, it's fully country, but that's awesome. That's a great soundtrack. Johnny Horton, Sonny James, the usual kind of stuff you'd expect with this kind of thing. Boxcar Willie, yeah, I figured that would be in there. That's signed. Probably. Often you do find, these are all backwards, sorry about that. Don Gibson. Rusty and Doug Kershaw. Doug Kershaw was a fiddle player. Yeah, there he is there. Okay, Sleepy LaBeef. Bulls Night Out. That's actually signed by Sleepy. There you go. That's pretty cool. That's interesting for Canadian football fans, because that is the CFL's Saskatchewan Roughriders. Back when the league had 2 teams named Rough Riders, and I don't think there were 10 teams in the league. So, yeah. But I've actually sold this to a Rough Riders fan before, so that's kind of neat to get back in. Should have probably swung these around. John Anderson, Bobby Bear. What are we looking at there? Jerry Lee. Dwight Yoakam also. Something about panhandling. Hank Williams, Ramblin' Man. Or some Hank Snow. A lot of guys named Hank got into country. Streets of Fire soundtrack? What the? Rock and roll. That's kind of cool. Again, soundtracks. They were into Oak Ridge Boys, some Dean Martin, Bill Anderson, Alan Ray. I think he was, I don't know who he was, not gonna lie. Red Simpson, Dick Nolan. Is that signed by Dick Nolan again? I don't know. Another soundtrack. I do well with soundtracks, actually. People just collect them. The Pursuit of D.B. Cooper, which kind of looks like some sort of like James Bond type thing, but then it's like country soundtrack. Waylon's on there, Rita, Jesse Coulter and Waylon. That's pretty cool. Yeah. George Jones and Johnny Paycheck, Stonewall. Like half these I haven't know. I've just heard of Glenn Campbell, but half these guys I just haven't heard of them. And then there's your usual. Oh look, Narvel the Marvel. Lynn Anderson. There's another Hank Williams Jr. There's another Hank Williams Jr. Another Hank Williams Jr. George Jones and George Jones all the way to the end. He sings like the Dickens. So there you go. You know, not super duper valuable, but when you go through and you add up some of the titles in there, like the Fenderman and a couple of those soundtracks like Roadhouse, and I didn't even look up Smoking the Bandit 2 because I didn't see that the first time I went through them. Who knows? There's got to be at least probably $200 retail in like the records that I'll pull out of here, and then the rest are going to go in the dollar bin and probably get picked over time, and then in the end I will probably end up donating them to one of the local charity shops and see what they can do with them, rather than these just going in the dump and then ending up in the landfill. And I can already hear some of you saying that's where they belong, but I don't believe that. It's not good for the environment to throw all that plastics and vinyl into a landfill, and B, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's garbage, because probably stuff that you listen to, there's people who think that's garbage too. Like I said, if we can all just sort of accept that not everything we like is liked by others and vice versa, we'll all just get along pretty well. So yeah, so that's it. Again, you guys should look into, because I'm not the only one. I only found this out like a year ago about the sort of recycle center at my local dump where people drop these things off. And then, you know, you can take it for free. And it's not just this, like I have picked up records. I have picked up 2 video game collections with consoles. I have picked up vintage Christmas ornaments. I had a big, like 3 boxes of that stuff. I made a video about that. I have a playlist of just the stuff I find from the dump, and I'll link that down there too. You guys can have a look if you're interested, because the video game collection was pretty interesting. And the first thing I ever got from the dump was records, and it was, you know, similar number. Like they get dropped off in big amounts, and there was some pretty cool stuff in there, at least that I thought was pretty cool anyways. So yeah, there's no Black Flag in this one, the video this week, no Dead Kennedys, but who knows what next week will bring. All right, maybe go check out your dump and see if they have something like this, because maybe you luck out. Bye.